We have Shekhar, a passionate advocate for users. Shekhar is currently the UX manager at ADP, Hyderabad. He was instrumental in setting up usability lab at Samsung Design Delhi. Having a diverse academic and professional background, Shekhar thrives in a multidisciplinary environment that helps him lead a product journey seamlessly. He also continues with his journey of crafting fine digital products that are available across the world. His key specializations include UX, domain mobility, information architecture, and wireframing, user journeys, and proposal writing. Let's welcome him with a warm applause. Up next, we have on the dais Diksha Gautam, a UX researcher at Angel One Mumbai. Diksha is a seasoned professional in the field of UX research with a strong foundation in psychology and cognitive science. She also has a keen interest in usability testing, storytelling, and exploring the role of AI in research. Currently at Angel One, Diksha has previously worked at renowned organizations like Dream11 and Make My Trip. Let's welcome her with a warm applause. Arvind Chandrashekar, a distinguished researcher and published author with over 15 years of experience. We now introduce Arvind Chandrashekar. His strong belief in the efficacy of interdisciplinary thinking fosters his interest in computer science, political science, quantitative finance, behavioral economics, and neuroscience. This helps him bring out unique insights from the user's behavior. Currently, Arvind is the director of user research at Glance. At Glance, he expanded the user research team from an individual to a team of 6 overseeing multiple product lines across 6 major geographies. Harini Karthik. We now introduce the head of UX research, security software at IBM Software Labs, Harini Karthik, with over 16 years of experience across enterprise software, B2C, e-commerce, hardware, telecom, and consulting. Harini also specializes in building high-performance teams, establishing efficient research processes, and driving UX initiatives throughout the entire product lifecycle. She is also passionate about delivering actionable insights through innovative storytelling, including customer engagement programs, newsletters, and quarterly business reviews. Please welcome her with a warm applause. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Parag Trivedi, a seasoned design leader with an impressive 25-year track record of driving innovation and success. With expertise in design leadership, team building, and product development, Parag has a proven ability to build and launch products that achieve global success. Having worked with esteemed organizations such as Microsoft, GE Healthcare, and Honeywell, he brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. We are excited to have him share his insights and expertise through this panel discussion today. I now hand over the panel to Mayank Loonker.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Thank you, panel. We've had the longest time to wait, but we are finally together on the same stage. So while my colleague has done the heavy lifting of introducing everyone, I just want to give you a brief context of what we are planning to do here today. So the topic of our session today is user research in India, a cross-organizational perspective. And we have an incredible panel that we went to great lengths to curate, to bring in people who represent both organizations that are large global enterprises and organizations that have sort of that were conceived in India and then they grew within India and perhaps are now serving across the globe. So the idea is to get a cross-organizational perspective of what is it, what does it mean to lead user research within organizations, what are the challenges, what are the organizational contexts in which they have to sort of evangelize design research and then take things forward from there. So with this, we are trying to uncover insights about research leadership, and and impact. How do you drive impact of research within organization? So to begin with, while we have had some introduction from Shalaka for each of panelists. I want to just spend maybe a minute with each of you to discuss one key turning point in your career as a user researcher. What was that time that, or what was that, and why that turned out to be such a key moment? So yeah, we can start with Parag. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. So the key turning point which made us realize the value of research, is that the question?
In your career, which sort of, uh, and so the leading up then would be the discussion as to what are the skills that maybe then you realized are needed to thrive in the function that you are leading. So those.
Yeah, so I think just a bit of background. So I don't practice research fully, but I have led a research team in various places and also done research directly. So for me, as I have been through, the various part of product development journey, I think the realization, especially when you are trying to create something completely new or trying to create something from scratch, that is where I have seen actually research playing a great role. And in my career, whenever we had such kind of opportunity where we are trying to either coming up with something totally new or disruptive, or trying to figure out a completely new way of sort of serving maybe even the existing problems. And that is when I felt research was the sort of very effective. It was the almost like a right way for us to even define and frame the problem correctly. So I think that has been the learning and the value which I have seen in my research, and that's the kind of thing, sort of I have been part of, and my team has kind of played a key role in that.
For me, I would look at it as two key turning points. One is where I started my career with, like Shipra, I started my career with Ripple. So it was an agency, and it was a boutique UX research agency, maybe one of the two or three that existed at that point of time. And I think there's a lot of conversations that young researchers come and talk to me about that, like how do we get into product company? But I owe a lot of things that I learned because I worked in a boutique research agency. In the days where dairy study you wouldn't find any information online, we had to run those. So we learned everything hands-on. So a gamut of toolkits that I used in very early in my career, and what made me very thorough with methods, it came from that experience. So I think I owe that a lot to where I started my career. So that was one of the key turning points, because once you are very thorough in your function, then you can like go adapt, learn business, and all the other things that we've been discussing throughout the day. So that was the first thing. The second turning point in my career, I would think it was Flipkart, because I ended up working in the headquarters. So while I worked in really large organizations, I would say that my experience with Flipkart was really amazing, because they exposed me to a lot of conferences. They asked me to build a brand for UX research within Flipkart. We kind of scaled to becoming one of the largest teams in India. And I think Ripple talked about the value creation and value capture. I think Flipkart was at the value creation phases. So I think that led to a lot of growth. So I think these two were like key turning points in my career, and like which led to a tremendous growth at that point.
Fantastic.
A key turning point was probably the time I realized you can get paid to be annoying and ask questions, and it's a bonus that you get to travel, and you're not paying for it. You, you know, uh, so just that realization of that you can be paid decent money to travel, be annoying, and keep asking different ways of why to different people. I think that was the only turning point, because after that I've not turned back. So yeah.
I think heavy plus one to everything that Harini said. I also started my career with a very boutique UX research agency like UCC. And I too owe a lot of what I've learned in my career to that. But I think part of my experience then was also that, you are also sort of treated like an agency where, you ship out some insights, some really groundbreaking work, and then, you never know if it saw the light of the day, right? And that's the most heartbreaking part. I think that turned me to actually maybe start looking out roles in product organizations where I could see what's really happening or not. But, to actually really be able to put a finger on, I can see how far my work has traveled or not, like I said.
So for me, I would say that my career started more as a designer, and I do remember that there were some discussions we used to have uh, a monthly meetups with the head of the design, and folks from marketing, sales, and sometimes there used to be discussions around, okay, fine, they are the designers, but we are the ones who sell. We are the ones who tell them, what kind of designs to come up with. So this is in my early career when I was working as a contemporary menswear designer. So things about the reason of whatever you are doing, what are you doing and why do you need to do that? So the questions around what value would it bring? Let's say if you're designing, what do you need to come up with next? The answers to these questions did lie within the research aspect, let's say part of the process. So that is something that I felt that and also the dollar value I would say or I would bring here that if you look at your career growth. So one is when you're designing, and the reason of why you're designing. Well, let's say when the business comes with a perspective or a proposal versus when you start to pitch together with the business saying that this is what we need to do and this is how we could do. So perhaps it's the why and what that brought me to this domain of research. And then after that, I would say I'm lucky to have carried both aspects of design and research until now.
Right. So I think all of you have this very interesting approach to what you identify as a turning point or as a, and so my follow-up question to that is that we all understand, I think everyone may share this feeling, like research is a tough profession, right? I think we've all discussed this in some way or the other through the day, that it is a tough profession. And so for various reasons, whether we are in the field, running the studies, or it is the part where we want to create an impact within an organization or grow the function within the organization. And so what keeps you motivated today to sort of continue to pursue this particular practice? And then therefore, what do you think are some of the key skills to sort of excel in your roles today? So I think we can start from Shashank and then go that way.
I think today the discussions and the talks have been amazing. So I was thinking that, oh my God, they're going to cover everything. Maybe we'll not have any point to say. So the two, I would say skills that I feel that is important. The first part, I would say it's more of a mindset is curiosity. And why curiosity as a researcher? Because we have always heard about being childlike, right? So there are no biases. And with that mindset, it helps you to unearth a lot of insights. So one is curiosity, and the second one also I think was covered very well, which is again storytelling. So, but with storytelling, I would say that, see, as a researcher, even if you have a lot of curiosity, you bring up a lot, you know a lot, and then finally it boils down to how you are able to present, of course, different audiences that we also saw in some of the previous talks. Let's say it's a designer that you're talking to, it's a product team that you're talking to. So it's all about how do you culminate and present your findings. And again, not everything that we always tend to, but what is important, that one element, and then you quantify to the right audience in the right manner so that they understand and let's say can take it forward. So it's all about actionable insights, but how do you tell them in the form of a story?
Talking of motivation to stay in the discipline, I think it is very interesting to be able to bring someone's perspective into a room who's not present. I think there are enough people who are talking about marketing, business, metrics, design, everything else. But I think to be the one person who's talking about who are you really making this for, I think that gives me the kick to be in that room and talk about that. And like actually, come from that experience and give them that flavor of, this is the part you're really missing out on. Speaking of skills, I think I definitely think one of which Shashank lightly touched upon is adaptability, which is, and I think this was covered earlier in the day today as well, where what you present to your design team versus what you present as an elevator pitch to the CEO in like 5 minutes has to be like really different. I know as researchers we can be really close to our work and really feel emotional about it. I have been there too. But I think the strength really lies in being able to adapt your work to suit the listener, the audience. And I think that's really one strength that we can all build on. And the other being resilience. While we are all really trying to be strong and tell the world that this is what you need to listen to, there are a lot of times we don't get heard. So I think what I've also learned in my career, in companies which, let's say, weren't very open to research or we were sort of building the function, is that you need to stay calm and like stay patient. Sometimes good work takes time. So resilience is also key.
I've been wondering about this question, and I don't think a dog is motivated to bark. A researcher is never motivated to do research. They just ask why, right? You can train a cat to behave like a dog. You can teach it skills, but a dog is a dog. Somebody who is innately is driven by the need to have their whys answered, they don't really need a motivation. Whether you're getting paid for it, you're not, you're anyway searching for things. Whether you're searching on Reddit, you're searching on YouTube, you're trying to figure out why are flat earthers wondering why the earth is flat, you're doing your searches. You are researching something. You're not getting paid for it, different issue, but you are doing searches. So for me, that question probably doesn't apply. But in terms of skill that is needed, one is to learn. You keep asking why, like a child asks, why the sky blue, is told some answer, and either the kid accepts or doesn't, but the next set of questions keep coming in. And if you don't sort of keep asking, keep filling in your knowledge and recognize all the things you don't know, then you're sort of not really doing and carrying out the practice that is needed. So reading, basically, yeah, reading is a critical aspect. And the second one is learn to have fun. Everybody seems to get and take life too seriously. It does get easy to complicate life with whatever people have to do and whatever is happening in the life, in day-to-day life and in the world. It's a skill to keep things simple and uncomplicate life. Always know what is that single question that everybody wants, to know the answer for. So, uncomplicate life and read. Those would be the two bits. And be a dog.
Nice. Harini.
For me, motivation to stay in the discipline over the years, I think the discipline has gone through tremendous sea change, right? Starting out as a researcher and like being graduated as a designer, and then starting off as a researcher for a boutique UX research firm, where India was an emerging market. We were not known as NBU, or like whatever, right? So from there to like moving into product setups, trying to understand that versus being the first researcher in many organizations to going to like set up the first lab, hire the first intern, grow that team to 5, and like the COVID happened, and then post-COVID, like my experience with enterprise. So I think that it's been a roller coaster ride, and I've enjoyed this ride so far. So I really think that for UX research, people who have been there and seen it through the last 16, 17 years, I think there's been like tremendous sea change of how we thought about research, what we're doing today. So I think there's never been a dull moment for UX research. That's the first thing. The skills that will be crucial for me personally, I think that we are one of those groups which actually do everything. We do a little bit of PMing. We do a lot of t-shirt sizing like what devs do, right? We need to have an executive presence. We always have to influence without authority, because a lot of places we are still creating that table, or we taking our own seats to the table and all of that, right? So I think it's one discipline which can actually learn from a lot of disciplines, and we are the only discipline where I would say that when we look at the rubrics of what it takes to be a level 1, level 2, level 3, being a dev, being a researcher, or being a PM, is that it's very well defined for a developer to say that in the level 1, 2 of their careers, they're probably only getting into the functional depth of coding and understanding the architecture. But when you look at the same rubrics, when you create that for researcher, from level 1, we say like stakeholder management, collaboration. So, estimation, being on time. So I think we really need to pick up skills from all the departments. And I think as I have traversed my career, I think I've learned these skills working directly with leaders of different functions. So I think we have to keep learning, because we're into a business. So more than like being just, it's not like so much about just bringing the user voice, but it's about understanding the business, talking the business language. But at the same time, the skills, I think you need to be a little bit of PM, you need to be a little bit of dev, you need to be a little bit of designer, you need to be a bit of everything. And then picking up all those skills are what is important.
I think for me, the one critical skill is the skill with your ability to enroll all your stakeholders. And the reason I'm saying is because all the successful research which I have seen in my career, which actually led to some impact in terms of either improving the life of people or even creating a business impact, were the research where researchers were able to enroll all the key stakeholders. So this ability to enroll, and there are different ways, in different contexts people would do. I'll just give you a couple of examples to kind of make this very clear that why it is extremely critical. Like during my GE days, when the GE as a global team was sort of doing research to just understand the experience of these kids who go to MRI and then they really get traumatized and it leads to several issues. Then this insight to a idea and a business solution, that was the process. Like, hey, there is an insight that people really get stressed. But in order to enroll all the stakeholders to put their money and the customers to say that, yo, this is really needed, there was a setup, the whole experience was created in which the room was full of very tall furniture, like very huge table, chairs, and all the execs were asked to go inside that room, and then they were seeing like, where do I sit? Like, what is this? Like, I see this tall table, tall chair, what is this? So they were there for like 10 minutes, and then our chief designer says, that's the experience kids go through when they go for MRI. Like everything looks like, what is this? What is this? And then like nobody said any word. Like people said, okay, got it, let's do something about it. And that led to the most famous, the award-winning adventure series, which actually showed the 90% reduction in the sedation rate. So, but the insight to enrollment, I think that is one. The second, even in my experience at Microsoft, when we were sort of thinking about what kind of product we want to build, we took our, the entire leadership went to China, and then we were seeing things. And in that moment, in the context when people saw how things are happening, that triggered the solution. And we didn't have to do a lot of like this, thing to convince, because people were already got convinced. And like, Uday said about, like he actually makes the clients make the presentation. I mean, you have done it, right? If clients are doing it, then you don't have to do, you already sort of nailed it. So I think that is extremely important, your ability to sort of enroll so that things become very smooth of that. And even for me, like I remember things where people actually participated, had lot more higher retention of insights. Your understanding of those insights is very, very deep compared to what you see when you hear insights in a boardroom. So I think there is that difference as well. The second about motivation, I think today in this era, like on one side you have artificial intelligence, right? Which even with one prompt, it can create any solution without any research. So there is this thing which can create everything. On this other side, in a corporate, you work with very highly Either here you have artificial intelligence, here you have naturally intelligent people who can just create things, right? They have been in this field, they can, without research, they can do it. But I think research is the field which keeps people grounded in the reality, grounded in what actually humans are looking for. I mean, I have been into many discussions where we spend a lot of time in framework, and this is how the strategy for our homepage and things like this. When you go and talk to the person, he says, I just want to share this file very easily, which I'm not able to do it. I mean, people are doing all kinds of heavy framework thinking, intellectual discussion, and this user is just saying, hey, I just want to share this file simply, and I'm not able to do it. And things like this, like the research actually keeps people grounded, in addition to all other major insights. But so in this era where everything can be done automatically, intelligence is available everywhere, research can keep people grounded with what humans actually need. I think so that's the motivation more needed at this time.
Yeah, I think some of the things, I'm just trying to paraphrase what we've heard is, like, I think one is either you are just the being, a curious being, or you want to be the one who voices the voice of someone who's not there, or it is about, this journey, this incredible.
I just want to share the file. Don't tell me how you make a cycle. I just want to ride it.
Right.
We use this technology. It's made out of carbon fiber. All of that is an ego boost for the internal stakeholders. The user doesn't really care. Like, there are few of them who are obsessed with cycling. They might, but
Right.
for the larger audience, not
So
so much.
with this, I want to move to the one topic that I want really all of us to deep dive in, and which is where, I think really the strength of this panel would sort of shine, is where the question is very simple, that what does it mean to be a researcher and to represent a research or lead the research function in the different organizational context. So I really don't have a lot of questions to ask you, but what I really want is for you to build on each other's sort of responses there. And the fact that you represent global enterprises, local enterprises that are becoming global, and local enterprises, I think that fascinating sort of cross-organizational perspective is what we really want to sort of bring out. So, yeah. So maybe we can this time start in the middle with Diksha, and then we can go either ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I think having worked in more homegrown brands that most of them actually only cater to the Indian subcontext, I think I've kind of seen a lot of things with regards to when I was in the agency. I was seeing a lot of, large organizations giving us projects to do in the Indian context, moving to the product side of things, and now doing projects with the people, in that context. I think the biggest challenge, if I were to speak about that, has been internal more than external, because you still reach out to your users. You'll still have to try and talk to them. You still do the research bit of things, right? What becomes critical and crucial is how you manage research on the inside, which is inside the org. How do you get that executive buy-in? How do you really have people listen to what you want to say? Because again, most of the companies are very set in their ways. Someone coming and telling them a lot of what we are doing may not be the right thing to do. A lot of the ways in which we approach the user may not be so right, and things like that is not something they're really willing to listen, right? So I think while we're building the research function in, let's say in my experience with Make My Trip or Dream 11, I think a lot of the time went out in actually evangelizing research, telling people what research can do. Because a lot of time, you can have stakeholders come and tell you that I would love to hear if users like something. So it's a very, very biased approach to, what they really want to know. It's kind of like, this is what I want to know, but it'd be nice if the user says it. So I think the bigger challenge is to actually tell them what research can do, also prepare them to hear the not so great things that the users have to say, and then also like sort of, like we've discussed, get that seat, be seated there, and still have people listen to you while you're talking. I think those have been like the major challenges in my experience.
I've seen the company go through an entire 180-degree spin in the last 3.5 years. When I joined, I was the first researcher for a company that had been in existence for 15 odd years. None of the PMs had ever worked with a researcher. Designers had not worked. They were expected to carry out research. This is before AI existed. So we had end user facing products which were entirely red, meant for US. And the designer did not know that red signified Republican and blue was for Democrat. So there were a few of these obvious misses that took place. In the beginning, people said, research can stop you, will never help you make a great product. It can get you from a bad to a good product. So it's a safety net. That was the overwhelming, sentiment that people had. It is only, I think, within the first 6 months, people realized the amount of money they were saving and I think Achyut had sort of mentioned it in terms of saving costs, prioritization, your sequencing, getting people to recognize saying, let's ignore the sample size of one. Let's hear at least a couple of people who are not part of this echo chamber. People who are using our products. We, unfortunately, often are never our own product users. We have to go somewhere else to find these guys. Just to get people to realize that takes time and difference. Right now, I would be very proud to say that we are a research mature organization, primarily because we treat research as a center of excellence. We have subsumed everything: consumer insights, market research, strategy and ops, corp dev. Everybody comes to user research. Now, whether you call it UXR, user research, market research, whatever, we don't care. It's research. And yeah, I think that is a journey. So you will find different organizations in different parts of that maturity place, but it all comes down to how long does it take for you guys to reach a place of respect and recognition of each other's skill set, which are complementary or supplementary, and everybody's got their, and it all depends on the culture as well. Thankfully, I am one of those fellows who will pick up a fight, and everything, +1 to everything Ankur said. Everything. You want to pick up a fight? Yes. Go into meetings wearing a glove. Be prepared to pick up your battles. If people are being stupid, call it out. Do not be ashamed. Do not, walk in fearlessly. And I think all of that helps. But the culture needs to empower that. You shouldn't be sort of penalized for raising questions. You shouldn't be penalized for being in the room and following up, saying, what did that mean? And you should be encouraged to live outside of your head. The little voice in your head does a lot more damage than anybody can actually do to yourself. So, yeah.
I think Arvind has covered a lot of points. So I'll keep mine brief. Like Ankur, I've worked across 9 different organizations, probably in an attempt to search for like an ideal company with ideal research processes. But in all of this, one thing that is very common is all the organizations are looking for evidence, whether it's evidence-based design, evidence-based building products, having a strong point of view. And that is what like research is brought in for a lot of organization. Yeah, getting from bad to good, good to great, saving money, all of that is a little bit contextual on whether you are in a bigger organization, like an international organization, which is specifically building a content consumption platform for India or an e-commerce for India, or you're in a larger corporation which is trying to build a product for B2B that scales across globally, right? So depending on all of these things, this context changes a little bit. From a research leadership point of view, what I think is when you have to fight those battles, right? I think it's very important. Ankur has already covered this, but I'm just going to repeat a few points, right? Like you have to close the loop. You have to track your impact. Like don't be hesitant to go and ask, like, did my research like let you identify a new feature? Or did it help you identify a new product? Or was it just validating a hypothesis that we were already had conviction on? Or it was just like, yeah, it was good to know, but it really didn't bring a lot of, and I think all of this needs to be tracked somewhere, right? And I think as research leaders, we have tried to kind of do this probably in a lot of Excel sheets and a lot of other places. We try to have these impact tracking meetings, but also as research leaders trying to fight to get the right tooling. So when you have put something as a new product or new feature, is it going and sitting as a backlog for our PMs to pick it up in the next quarter? Like, how do we pass on the owners effectively? So I think that's where the research leadership part comes in, that every time we do a research, we do it, we track impact, we get applauded, but is it archived or is it going back into a backlog where somebody else is picking it up, right? So I think that is something that I'm very keenly looking at, and in my current organization, like we are trying to do this. It's helping us look at the ROI very differently. We are able to look at dashboards to say that where is it that research is spending more time? What is the kind of insights that we're generating which is actually creating impact or not creating impact? What is getting picked up? So I think the research leadership role needs to like get into that more going forward.
Yeah, I think for me, the research leadership in any organization, so I'm coming from my sort of experience in working large MNCs like Honeywell, G, Microsoft, now Salesforce. I think they're setting up the org right is very important from a research leadership perspective, because in large companies, you need to be totally aware of in what context you're operating, what is at what stage your product is. You cannot be like very disconnected like a consultant who has little clue of what is happening at what stage your product is. Like, oh, I have seen sometimes challenge that research, hey, I want to do this kind of research, or maybe a very generative research. But at that point, the product itself is not at that stage, right? Like, there is already a clarity. Now it is about the time you are in. It is about really getting to know whether it is whatever the hypothesis you are working on, whether the kind of product you have created is really resonating with people or not. So maybe this clarity of how do you position your research org and align closely where it is seen as a product builder and not really like an independent consultant who has little to no clue of where the business is headed helps. So I think if you build those bridges little more clearly, define and frame your inquiries, which kind of meets the need of the hour, or at least it aligns with the roadmap kind of thing, then you have a higher chances of success. I think this role of leadership is to constantly look at and figure out the sort of right framing and right kind of research, defining those right inquiries is very, very important. Because sometimes you do come across this challenge like, hey, I want to do this kind of research. But at that point, if you do that kind of research, then nobody's there to listen to that. So there is a timing, there is a framing, so I think is a very important for leaders to do that. And the second is, like many people have talked about it, closing the loop. Like I remember one of our very bright researcher did some really nice analysis, came up with some 10, 15 point. Everyone saw that, people agreed, these are all P0. After 1 month, nothing happened. Like, and said, why? Like in that presentation, everyone agreed. And people said, those are like very good points. And I was so happy. And now when I see nothing has been there, so what is happening? Then we went and spoke to the PM. He said, because none of them is in the GUS or none of them in the VSO. Like, you came, you showed us, we liked it, we clapped, people started doing what they were doing, because there is no process to take this research insights and issues to actually put it in the GUS. Somebody will have to do it, and if you don't do it, it won't happen, because engineering is the one who is going to do it, and they just follow the GUS, and if it is not there, it is not going to happen. And it was such a simple thing, like we just assume that it is somebody else's responsibility to what I present, they should take it and put it so that engineering can do it. And then, oh, that's it, like let me just sit and put it. And he sat like for 1 hour with them, edited, and it happened. So I think even these little things actually can make a big difference. But it is, how do you tie all this loose end so that you just follow the process what everyone is following, and then things happen.
Right. Sorry, Shashank. Yeah, before we.
So I'll just add to what Parag said, but I think leadership in a context when you talk about service companies or product companies.
Time now. In interest of time, I would take maybe one or two questions from the audience, and then you can pick those brains at Red Rhino. Yeah.
We are talking about the kind of projects we are picking up. Like Shashank just talked about choose research projects. So the curiosity is that we choose which research we will do. But that is the ask which is happening from any other cross team. Do we have any example where the KR or the roadmap is built based on some research insight that we found, and the next season we will be working on this research, like on this problem statement? Do we have such kind of example?
Let's say when you're talking about picking up research projects, so if you remember, we did talk about aligning or being aware about business priorities, right? So what happens in large organizations is that at the beginning of every fiscal year, they talk about, let's say, what's the area that the business is going to move forward. What are, let's say, some of the requirements. So it's top-down theory, and then as you get down to, let's say, the product aspect, you start to get more detail. So when you have a lot of research, let's say projects or requests coming up, that's where you try to not just accept that, but also create some proposals saying that while this is what you are saying, but we assume that this is what you should be taking at, because referring to some of, let's say, the KPIs or some of the business, let's say, objectives that the organization have. And in some cases, what we also try and do is that, see, there's a lot of research in big companies. What happens is there's a lot of research done across, by researchers, but as people come and go, you tend to kind of miss, on them. So as one of the, I would say, the speakers did say about, look all around you. So sometimes you can, pull up some of the research or, let's say, previous findings. It could be, let's say, a positive impact, or let's say a negative impact, how research kind of help you to save some, dollars. Bring that, and then always you can try and pitch, because we all are human beings, right? So one part is that qualitatively we try to, convince someone, maybe because taking business as a reference. And the other aspect is that quantitatively, or let's say the human mind always tries to look at something which is justifiable, which is quantifiable. Why? So, while there might not be any right or wrong answer, but again, it depends on the context, and then you can try to, bring in. But towards the end, I would try to say is that being aware about I would say, the business goals is critical, to kind of, again, push, your part.
Okay, so this is the last question we'll take. One more question. I think we have a hand there, show of hand there.
Hi, thank you for
Also,
this.
when you frame the question, if you could tell which panel member you want to answer, so that will make life easier for everyone.
Well, it's actually open for them. It's a very general question
Okay.
from my experience. So what if it's actually for the startups, but it can happen in a medium-sized level scale-up also. What if your PMs or other people are convinced with a bad data? So it's easier for me if I deal with no data. So if there is no data previously available, it's easier for me to convince why I need research. But what if they have done their own research? For example, they change how the Likert scale is. And I'm like, why have you, changed it on your own? It's a standard practice how it has to be, the survey has to be designed and how the Likert scale question has to be designed. But they did it, they justify it, they collect data, and I know that data is bad. So how do you deal in that situation?
It's unparalleled. Honest to God. That joy you cannot buy at any store, at any discount price. You don't have to call them an idiot, but there are better phrasings. But the message is received. And the beauty of it, if they stick with it, you can always come back with an I told you so, which is even more sweeter. So you are in an enviable situation of getting to have your cake and eat it too. And it's just about how smart you're being in terms of how rude you are choosing to be or how polite you're choosing to be, but the message remains the same. Because the other point that I also wanted to make, just as closing remark, is that I think one clear distinction that is stemming out from the entire conversation is there does seem to be an us versus them sort of a conversation, which I don't think, like, if you're working on a product, it's all of us working on the product. Uh, so it's not about what research projects are getting picked and who's picking up and what we should be doing. It's what's going to make the product better. Because I love the products that I work on and I'm a user. So I will do everything possible to make those products better. There's no us and them, but an idiot is an idiot. And what they're doing is contradictory to what I want people to do. So does that answer your question?
Um, yeah, I can understand. I mean, there's no it's the way, how do you phrase it nicely to them? It's very hard to just
ChatGPT does that. DeepSeek is now a cheaper option. you know, uh, I used to use thesaurus.
To find nice
Yeah.
adjectives.
Yeah. Or just watch movies, pick up different slang from, Scotland, Ireland, anything.
I think as a community, we
Or-
can actually, bring up a word list to help people
Or
with this.
follow Anku's advice and buy a pair of gloves.
Yeah, I think I'll just add to it. See, sometimes what happens is that, and it's common to find such stakeholders, right? Because there's so many. So one is that you need to have patience, but you know that it's again a long-term approach to change that mindset. It's again, a lot of our talks are on mindset. So one of the approaches that have helped us is that, okay, get their data, but if you have time, let's say for this project or the next project, take up, let's say, quick, I would say, research or talk to, let's say, a couple of users and try to, bring that, element or let's say quantify whatever, let's say you feel that this is not right or let's say, the data that you have presented is not reliable. Try to counter, place that data, but don't do it one-to-one. When, let's say, when you have it, bring it in a group. And then the analogy of, let's say, who is an idiot would kind of come out easily.
Right. So thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you very much for your response.
uh,
Helpful.
I was just, if there is a concluding remark that Parag or Harini or Diksha wants to make, and then otherwise we can then proceed with.
I mean, just one point from my side, like I said, this is the perfect time for researchers. Like there is so much intelligence going on. We need people to, who can keep the organizations and all the intellectuals grounded with reality. And then enroll people in the possibilities which you are seeing. So then you will see the success. You will see the research actually leading to the outcome.
I mean, you called it out as what do you do when there is a bad data, right? So, firstly, I don't know how to define a bad data because the data is in isolation and lacks context. So, I think triangulation of multiple sources, that's one thing that I can think of. The second thing is if it is about somebody else running a research where you feel that the method and the sample size is all compromised. I see a lot of these posts on LinkedIn these days, and I generally don't go respond, but I did it recently because in one of the posts they talked about how like methodology is not everything, you should just deliver fast. I think that you actually bring a lot of confidence in decision making. So you need to be confident of the data that you're bringing in, right? So I think those are the two things that I would want you to keep in mind and when you're making the argument. But at the end of the day, I don't want to take off the mic drop moment of calling an idiot an idiot. So yeah. So that in place, these are probably the ways in which you can identify whether the data is like lacks context and hence skewed in its own way, or is it a compromised method of running the study?
Right. That's very valid point, ma'am, and thank you so much.
So thank you, panel members. And with this, we conclude the panel as well as all the talks of the day. Uh, right. So, yeah, okay. So, over to you. Yeah.
Thank you for bearing with all of us. I hope everybody has had a great time today. I would like to thank the panel members for your time. I can definitely say it was worth the wait, waiting for you all to speak. May I now invite Prachi Sakardande to join us on the stage to present mementos to the panelists, please. Can we have a big round of applause?